Everyone, welcome back to the Brothers of Broad Street podcast. I'm here with Bryce Ellig. My name's Jim Croger. We're on part 2 of episode 21. If you guys listened to the last one, Bryce and I were discussing who we have coming out of each division. And we ended off the last episode talking about Carson Wentz and my love for him. At the halftime break, our man Bryce, who you all know is Bryce's best bets, he came out with a bet for me. Carson Wentz, in his opinion, will never win a Super Bowl with the Colts. But if he does, as the starting quarterback, Bryce will personally give me $100. So
no, he does. Jim doesn't have to give me a dollar.
Nothing. There's no odds here.
This is a risk-free bet for Jim.
This is actually a win-win situation for me. I got nothing to lose. So we're putting that out there for you guys to hear. So it's, out in the world, you guys have seen it. Everybody's seen it. Bryce will be giving me $100 when Carson Wentz wins the Super Bowl with the Colts.
And it has to be, to make it clear, folks, it has to be as the starter. He's got to play the season. He can get hurt and come back, but he's got to start in the Super Bowl.
He can't be like 2017.
Yeah, he can't be on the bench. He can't win it as a backup. He's got to win it as a starter. That just to make it clear, because some fans might,
yeah.
I'll be sleeping like a baby every single night because Carson Wentz is never winning a Super Bowl ever.
Between Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, he's still got T.Y., Frank Reich.
I think his number one wide receiver is Zach Pasquale.
Are you just going off of game one, or what are you going off of?
That's what people have been saying, that he likes him in practice and stuff. I don't know. I don't read a lot about Carson Wentz because I dislike him. So
anyway, we'll get off Carson Wentz because you don't like talking about him, but we'll switch over the final division, the NFC least, also known as the NFC East. Cowboys, the football team, you got the New York Giants, and then obviously you got the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think we have to spend too much time on this topic because I think I know who you're picking. But Bryce, who are you going with to win the NFC East this year?
I think this is going to be a surprise, but no, I'm kidding. I'm going the Eagles. I mean, there's not Eagles. I would take the Eagles if I was the quarterback. I'm always taking the Eagles. It doesn't matter to me.
Birds all the way. But when you break it down, even after week one, I know it's early, so we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves. But listen, the football team losing Fitzpatrick is a big loss. Taylor Heineke, obviously he can play. He played well in that playoff game against the Buccaneers last year, but I don't think he's as good as Fitzpatrick is.
And I think the Giants fall into the Atlanta Falcons territory.
And I think the Giants fell into the New York Jets territory. I think they're that low.
They're bad. They're really bad.
Yeah. But listen, I'm nervous for the Cowboys. I don't know about you.
No, I mean, Cowboys are definitely not a team to be slept on, but to me, losing their main defensive guy, their defensive all-pro stud, is going to be huge. They're going to look for Micah Parsons to be the anchor on that defense as a rookie. That's a lot of weight.
And he did not look good in that.
I was just going to say I'm very high on Micah Parsons. He went to Penn State. He's a great player. I know that, but he looked pretty bad. He had a couple plays, especially that Chris Godwin touchdown where he was like your coach tells you when you're in Pee Wee. He got caught ball watching. He didn't blitz the quarterback. He didn't cover wide receiver. He just stood in the middle, got caught ball watching.
Yeah, he was lost.
Yeah, I mean, first game, obviously it's tough. First game against the greatest player to ever pick up a football. That's going to be tough, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I still think he's going to have a really good season, probably win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Don't be surprised. But, yeah, for him to be the anchor on that defense is going to be it's going to be tough. Their defense still looks pretty bad. Just don't be surprised. The Eagles, I feel like, are the all-around best team talent-wise with the, like we said all the time, every coach says it, GM says it, you win in the trenches. Our offensive line and defensive line, to me, are far better than any other team in our division combined. Obviously, Washington's defensive line is very good, and the Cowboys' offensive line can be really good. But to me, our team together is great on both ends, when other teams is great on one end but not so great on the other end.
When you look at the Cowboys' offense, listen, Zeke always eats against us. He's always good for 100 yards, always. I don't know what it is. I don't know if, you get those games where, you remember when you're
Boston Scott. It's the Boston Scott games. Boston Scott is on the Eagles just to play the Giants.
It's like baseball. Sometimes batters just love facing a certain pitcher. They just have their number. And Zeke just has the Eagles number. So Zeke's always good for 100 yards. Dak Prescott, listen, I know there was a lot of talk with his injuries and how he was going to come back and play. He played phenomenal in that Buccaneers game.
No, Dak is back, and he's proven to me, no doubt whatsoever, he's a top 10 quarterback in the league as of right now.
I wasn't much of a fan of him early on just because,
Same with me. Same with me.
Always the back and forth Eagles, Cowboys rivals. But watching him in that game, I was like, listen, I would want Dak on my team. Dak can play.
I would too. He's a great player, and it's crazy to think, but like he's kind of, even though he plays for the rival team, he's kind of a guy you just root for with his story and everything.
Yeah.
Like, Dak's just a good guy. You just root for him. It does. Like, I was sad to see him get injured last season, even though I root against him because he is the rival. But
still,
he's just Dak is the man. Like, if he's listening, you're the man.
I think he's one of the most respected players around the league. Everyone loves playing with him and stuff like that. That wide receiver core. I know Gallup just went down. That's going to hurt the Cowboys. That's a big injury. I know Gallup's not their top guy, but that puts a little bit more pressure on CeeDee Lamb to step up and perform. I know he had a great game against the Buccaneers, but now you got Cooper and Lamb. That helps the Eagles out a lot with Steven Nelson and Darius Slay. Now you don't have to worry about a third guy. So
because Michael Gallup tended to kill the Eagles a lot too.
Exactly. So he gets it with always that big throw. So I'm interested to see how those teams are going to line up that first game in Dallas. I think the Eagles lose that game, but I think the Eagles come away with the division.
They're going to split. They always do. They're going to split.
Yeah, it's always close games. It's like the Steelers playing the Ravens or the Browns playing the Steelers.
It's the best rivalry in football, in my opinion. I just love it.
So I want to, touch on something that you brought up to me that you wanted to talk about, underrated and overrated players. We'll just do offense, defense. Give me your overrated and underrated for offense first.
I want to give two guys, and I know they're on the same team, and I shouldn't be saying this, but one who, I don't know why everyone thinks this guy's so good. He just kind of convinced everyone because of his personality that he's so good. Taylor Long. He's a bad NFL player. Like, I'm not just saying that because he gave up 5 sacks. Obviously, that didn't help. But over the last couple of years, he just has not been good. He got caught with steroids. He tore his ACL in the beginning of one season. He was out. I mean, if you look at his stats, he does not ever perform very well. I just think he's a big relevant name because he's kind of a trash talker. He's kind of like made his name, well known in the football world. Like, it's not a lot of times guys like me know offensive linemen that play for the Titans. It's just, he's made a big name for himself. I think he's actually a bad football player, not even good, like average. I think he's bad. People think he's like an all-pro. Another thing is, don't overrate players because they make Pro Bowls. Bad players make Pro Bowls all the time in the NFL. You know it, and I know it. It's Pro Bowl is a name thing. And another big guy, and I've been saying it for years and years, and I'm not saying he's bad. Overrated just means people have him a little higher. Julio Jones is an overrated player. He is. At this point in his career, he's an overrated player.
This season, you're saying they're overrating him.
I think over the last 2-3 seasons, people have been overrating him. He doesn't get in the end zone. It's huge, and the teams he's played for haven't won over the last couple of years. It's big. It's big for me. I just think he's overrated, and I think people are starting to slowly catch on, especially after a really bad week 1. I think people are really going to slowly start to catch on that Julio is not the same guy he was 5 years ago. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he's the 20th best wide receiver in the league. He's still a top 15 guy. I just don't think he compares to a Hopkins or a Devontae Adams. It's done. That part of his career is over. He's nearing the end of it. He's in his 30s. As you said with running backs, it's similar to wide receivers. When they start to reach that, their 30s, they start to fall out of their prime. Julio's not in his prime anymore. Not saying he's bad, just not nearly as good as people make him out to be. Those are my two big overrated guys, and I know they're on the same team, but those are my two really, really big. Like, those guys are Julio's not ridiculously overrated. Taylor Long is like really overrated. I mean, if you watch him play, he's not a good player. 5 sacks in a game doesn't happen on accident.
I'll stick with the same team. Most underrated player in the league, I'm going with Ryan Tannehill. For some reason, I don't know why. I don't think that guy gets as much credit as he deserves. I think he's a very good quarterback. I know having Derrick Henry's like that quarterback, and Tannehill's like the running back in terms of like usage. But I think Tannehill has the ability with bringing in, I know you don't like Julio as much, but with Julio, A.J. Brown, and Derrick Henry, I can't talk about it enough. That offense is loaded.
No, I agree. I've always been on Ryan Tannehill. I've always been, even when he was with Miami, I always said if he just got a shot and a well-built team around him, he can succeed. And he's proven that over the last 2 years.
Yeah. Don't be surprised if Tannehill's in the conversation for MVP, honestly. Overrated. Sticking with the quarterback position, Kirk Cousins is the most overrated quarterback in the league, in my opinion. I don't mean, is
I think he's like properly rated because I think most people think he's like bad.
the contract that he was given by the Vikings was absurd. 3 years for like 87 million or
You know, it's
something.
funny. Remember when he
88
got
million.
remember he was like the top tier free agent, he got signed, and everyone's like, wow, Minnesota's gonna win a Super Bowl. I remember being like, no, they're not. Kirk Cousins is not good.
And when you looked at the statistics, the year before that is they had Case Keenum. And then when you line up player for player, like when they do the unknowns, like player A and player B, they were the same guys. And Case Keenum cost it, 50 million less, 60 million less. So I think Kirk Cousins is an overrated player. I do not see the Vikings having a good season whatsoever. I don't see Kirk leading them even to above 500. I just don't.
For my, I agree with you, just 150%. Like, I mean, it's just.
I never really liked him when he was with the Redskins. I know people, saw the Redskins and him as a threat, but I was never worried.
No, yeah, I mean, you're 100% right there. I mean, there's nothing to worry about.
You switching over to defense now? You doing underrated, overrated for defense?
For defense, yeah. Well, I'll do my biggest underrated for defense, and I talked about him in our last episode, is Melvin Ingram for the Steelers. He still looks like an all-pro guy after week 1. I think that was, another crazy thing that the NFL does, where they just think that a guy, when he hits his 30s or his, early to mid 30s, that he's just a bad player. No, he could still play, and that's going to be a scary, really, really, really scary 1-2 punch with him and Watt on the other. Yeah, TJ Watt on the other side. I mean, he proved 8 quarterback pressures. That doesn't happen on accident. He dominated. There was a play I saw where he initially looked like he was going to blitz on the outside and then looped back around and came on the inside and got a clean shot on Allen. That's a veteran move. I mean, he's going to play really, really well this season as long as he stays healthy. He's going to be, to me, a Pro Bowl player. Another underrated player, and I will continue to hype this man up forever. And I think you know where I'm going.
Jalen Birds?
Of course.
And I think I give the initials?
Yeah.
BG.
No. I want to give it to. I don't think he's I think people know that he's a Pro Bowl player. Like, I'm going to pretend in this world, I think Brandon Graham is a Pro Bowler, no doubt. I got to go Josh Sweat. Time in and time out. People just don't give this man credit. He's everywhere. If you watch him, he's everywhere. I mean, it's crazy. He's a freak athlete. Like, if you look at how he's built, he's a freak athlete. He can get to the quarterback. Obviously, he's going to, he doesn't get as much credit because there's Derek Barnett and we're going to give him playing time. We're paying him a lot of money. But man, that dude is a beast.
Yeah.
I can't believe you didn't think I was going Josh Sweat. I'm the biggest. I might be the biggest Josh Sweat guy alive.
I know. I didn't think you were going that, not unknown, but like under the radar, because he is under the radar name. Like a name.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like, I mean, not everybody, like I said, like everybody in the league knows Taylor Lewan. Like, that's a well-known name. Julio Jones, obviously, I agree. Ryan Tannehill. But yeah, I mean, I think he's a really underrated player. If I really look, this was more for like overrated players. Another guy I want to add on, Jameis Winston is overrated. Like, people stop with the Jameis Winston stuff, please. I'm begging people, stop.
If we're going underrated, I'm gonna stick with the Birds. I'm gonna go Brandon Graham. I think Graham has been so underrated, especially these last 3 or 4 years. I mean, when you look at him with us with the Super Bowl, he was incredible. Forced that strip sack against Brady. Derek Barnett obviously scooped it up. But then, for these past 3 years, knock on wood, has never gotten hurt, has played every minute of every game, basically.
Another big thing with that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is the fact that I remember back in the day in his draft class, we took him over Earl Thomas, and we needed a safety at the time. That was before we got Malcolm Jenkins. And for years, that was always the thing. I remember being like, we could have had Earl Thomas, and instead we got Brandon Graham. And I mean, you want to talk about late bloomers? Brandon Graham is the definition of it. It took him about 6 seasons to become like what he is. And ever since then, over the last, I'd say 8 years, he's been a Pro Bowl type player. He's been great on that line. And he's he is the Philadelphia Eagles to me. Like you think when I think Philadelphia Eagles, obviously, and I think other people probably think this, people that are fans of other teams in different states and stuff, think of Brandon Graham. He's been a Pro Bowl player for years. He finally got a Pro Bowl, but to me, over the last 3-4 seasons, he's been a Pro Bowl player.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
he's a 10 plus sack a season guy. It's crazy.
another thing that I think plays a role in it is Brandon Graham's been with us for 4 different coaches. So he's been with us with Reed, right? He was Reed's last year.
I believe, yes, he was
Yeah.
Reed's last year.
Or last 2, because Chip Kelly was the coach that signed him to the extension.
I want to say he was drafted in 2009. I want to say 2009.
We'll have to look back on that, but I think Brandon Graham, I mean, he's been there through it all. Andy Reid, Chip Kelly, Doug Peterson, and now Nick Sirianni.
Also, I always suggest people, if you want to also hear, I had the pleasure of meeting Brandon Graham before. He's an awesome dude, but listen to a couple mic'd ups. I mean,
Awesome.
He's the man. He's the man.
Yeah. There was a show on Amazon Prime, All or Nothing, and they did it on the Philadelphia Eagles 2 years ago. I think last year was the Arizona Cardinals. Brandon Graham was awesome in that show. He was the show.
No, yeah, man.
Constantly talking. He was calling Tom Brady Tim Brady. He's like, oh, he's not going to be Tom. He's going to be Tim this game. Like saying like he's going to be a completely different quarterback. He's not going to be himself. It's just funny.
His laugh is just his laugh is something else too. Like just he's just a really fun guy to just have on a team.
And I'm trying to think with like overrated defensive players. I can't really off the top of my head, but because you brought him up and his injury, I hope he recovers. I want to beat the Cowboys at their best. But I think DeMarcus Lawrence is an overrated player.
No, he is for sure an overrated player. Yeah.
I think the Cowboys paid him way too much money. I don't think he's worth the contract that they gave him. And when you look at teams that are above 500, especially with Dak Prescott, the Cowboys' big players don't step up when the lights come on. Like when they're like, where was DeMarcus Lawrence the other night in the game? Did he contribute?
I don't think so.
And even against the Eagles, he never steps up against the Eagles. Lane Johnson has had his number the entire career. And other teams like Dak Prescott, I think he's like 3-17 in the last like 20 with playing teams over 500 or something, playoff winning teams or something. Guys aren't stepping up in the big games.
It's funny. I actually, when I only watched a little bit of Hard Knocks this season, but the one I watched, they did a segment on him, and in the narrator was like, he has not lived up to the contract. And it's kind of funny because in Hard Knocks, they usually just hype up everybody on the team, but they even were like, oh, like has not played well since he got that contract, which I agree with. He definitely is not. He's not good. I mean, he got Fletcher Cox type money and is not playing.
No, and he has the talent and the skill to be a Fletcher Cox type player, like to be that good, to be a Cam Jordan. Like he's that good. But it doesn't seem like he's ever stepped up.
No, yeah, I think, and obviously this injury is probably going to set him back a lot. I know he's been injured a lot over the last couple of years, so we'll see. But I mean, a broken foot is going to set you back a lot, and I bet you Jerry Jones would like to spend that money somewhere else rather than spend it on him. But he's stuck there, so we'll see.
I think JT just hit a home run.
Oh, that's big. Hopefully he gets back on track. That would be huge.
Bottom of the 8th, the tie game 4-4. JT hit an opposite field home run.
Of course look at that live. You don't get that anywhere else.
Only get that on Broad Street. That's awesome. That's huge for him.
Yeah, no, that's big. And especially, of course, we were just talking about right when we ended, we took our break. We talked about, we're like, what did the Phillies score? They were up 4-2. Now, of course, they get tied, but now at least JT hits a home run to bring him back into it.
That's big time. That's only his 15th of the year. Just goes to show how he's been increase. One player that we'll switch over to the Phillies now. Let's talk about them. One player that I've liked since he's come back is Ranger Suarez. Now I know he's been, he doesn't pitch a lot of innings, but I mean tonight 6 innings pitched, 8 Ks, only one walk and 2 earned runs.
No, I mean the thing with Ranger Suarez is what I go on and on about.
What are you laughing at? What are you about to say?
My sister is just deciding to just make a ton of noise right now. I don't know what it is. But,
it's all right. We'll overcome adversity. It's all good.
No, yeah, it's all good. It's hard not to laugh because she just decided to do the garbage disposal during my podcast. I just thought that was a really wild move by her. But the big thing is with Ranger Suarez is that I think that he stepped up, especially when the Phillies, think about it. He's a closing pitcher, and he stepped up and played a ton of really, really good games. I mean, only pitching 3 to 4 innings, but consistent, not giving up any runs. And I know there was a couple of huge games where he just stepped up to the plate, and we got a lot of wins that I thought were going to be losses.
We're overcoming a lot of adversity.
Yeah,
We
there's a lot going on right now.
Our fellow friend Sean, but anyway, no, I totally agree with you. For the Phillies to do well in the playoffs, they got to get a third guy at least.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, we got to get Eflin back for sure. It's tough to stay focused.
Should we just get off the air at this point?
No, I mean, it's this is what we got to do. I mean, it's just part of the job.
Yeah, I mean, we ask players to perform in pressure moments. Now we got to step up in pressure moments.
I mean, who tries to stay quiet and then starts the garbage disposal? I mean, that's just unbelievable. I've never seen somebody do that before.
That's worse than playing. That's worse than playing at Arrowhead. Trying to think and pod while the garbage disposal is going. That's worse than Arrowhead.
I mean, I seriously, I'm a team player. I mean, I'm just trying to stay focused, and it's tough out here. Yeah. Then I'm gonna talk. Someone pops in from your door. I mean.
Oh man, but yeah, I mean, looking at the Phillies, they got to get a third guy. Nola obviously hasn't been.
I actually saw a list, and it was most overrated players in the MLB, and he came in at number 1. Wow. It was sad to see, but I can't say I completely disagree with it.
For most overrated, I gave it to him.
Maybe not most overrated in the MLB, but he's got to be if I'm making a top 5 list, Aaron Nola's 1 or 2. I mean, think about it. In 2018, everyone was talking Cy Young, and now he's maybe a solid second guy in a rotation. Maybe I'd say I'd like him more as a third or fourth guy in a rotation rather than a second guy. He's definitely no ace. I think you can agree with that. He's just not an ace.
If you want to do overrated, underrated, and we'll stick with the Phillies right now, people think Bryce Harper is the most overrated in the league.
No, he's not.
In my opinion, he's the most overhated player in the league. Yeah, I think people just love to hate him.
Yeah, and I think people are
the most underrated. If that is it good enough? I think he's the most underrated player.
No, I think what's funny is that people talked about this huge contract. He's lived up to every penny and even more. He's been one of the best players in baseball since that contract.
He's been so well worth that contract, and it's not even like they're paying him a lot per year. I think the AAV is like $25 million, which is nothing for a player in the prime of his career.
Stan's probably making as much as that, if not more.
Yeah, and he's so overrated.
Stan is overrated.
Stan is so overrated.
I used to be a huge fan of him too. He's just so overrated now.
I like
Javi Baez might be the most overrated player.
Javi Baez is overrated. I think Pete Alonso is overrated.
Pete Alonso is so, oh my God. Yeah, that's the big name. I always say that. He's just a home run derby guy. He's just there for once in a year, the home run derby. He is so overrated. It's ridiculous.
Another underrated player that just came to my mind because we're talking first baseman, Joey Votto.
Oh my God.
Joey Votto has been putting up numbers every year of his career. He's the reason why the Reds are as good as they are right now.
I agree. Would you say he's a Hall of Famer? I would give him a Hall of Fame nod. People, that's the big debate. That's the big debate.
That's a good question for you listening right now. Is Joey Votto a Hall of Famer? Listen, Cooperstown's a lot harder to get in than, say, the NBA Basketball Hall of Fame.
Well, the Basketball Hall of Fame's a joke. I mean, the Basketball Hall of Fame.
I would even say Cooperstown's a little bit harder than football. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, baseball is by far the hardest sport to get into. There's multiple guys that have had Hall of Fame type resumes and haven't gotten into the MLB Hall of Fame. That's not just the steroid guys. That's for any guy in general.
Right, that's a great question. Let me check first basemen who are in the Hall of Fame. I think Todd Helton got in a couple years ago, didn't he?
I don't know. I think he's still not in yet.
Still not in?
I think he's a Hall of Famer for sure.
Jeff Bagwell.
He got in recently over the last 3 years.
Jimmy Fox, Lou Gehrig, Eddie Murray, Stan Musial, Frank Thomas, Jim Thome just got in 2018.
Well deserved. Jim Thome, great player.
For his career, 276 average for Jim Thome. 612 home runs. Oh my!
I think any guy that hits over 500 home runs, has got to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean,
Frank Thomas had a high average, 30, not a high, but 301.
He's one of the most underrated players ever. Just he played for the White Sox. It's just a tough team.
Almost had 2,500 hits. Tommy played for the White Sox too, didn't he?
Tommy played for everybody. Tommy played for everybody.
Indians, White Sox, Phillies.
Pirates, I think. I don't know if he played for the Pirates.
We'll have to look at that. But
he played for a lot of random teams.
Wow, Tommy had a good career.
No, a really good career.
612 home runs. That's crazy. No steroids either.
No, he was legit.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, I liked when the Phillies re-signed him. Remember when we re-signed him late in his career?
I went to like one of the games because I wanted to be like, I need to see Jim Thome before like he's done.
Wow, look at Stan Musial's numbers.
Well, you can't compare. But I think the big thing is what you got to account for is the fact that Joey Votto is a Canadian player. I think that might help him out a little bit.
Let's see Joey Votto career stats.
I just think he's
Good question, dude.
That's like the biggest debate right now, as I see it all the time. Is Joey Votto a Hall of Famer? And it's like split directly down the middle. I'd probably say it's more towards he's not a Hall of Famer than he is.
His career average is 302. So he's got it with the average. Hits, I think he's got to record a couple more hits. He's got
to get more hits. He's got to get more hits. That's his
2015
issue.
Right now. RBIs, he's got 1,000. Home runs. Oh. He's got 30 home runs this year.
He's been great this year. He's had like a recharge. Like he's playing like a completely different player.
6-time All-Star, and he was the MVP in 2010.
But he's been the MVP runner-up, third guy for like 4 or 5 years.
Home runs, he's only got 325. Not only that's great. That's awesome. But
I just know another crazy stat is he's only popped out to first base like one time in his career. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Like it happened like last year. He popped up to first base. Like that was like the first time he's ever like popped up. It's like crazy.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get trying to match him up with some players. Tell you what. So Orlando Cepeda, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. He's in the Hall of Fame. 1999, he was inducted. He's got an average of 297, 2,300 hits, 379 home runs, 1,365 RBIs.
No,
Joey Votto's right there.
I was just gonna say if he can get to 2,300 hits, I'd say that's where I feel good he can make the Hall of Fame.
If he plays next year, say he gets 20 home runs, 25 home runs, he's right there at 350.
I still think he's got another 3 years of not maybe like solid, but he's gonna hit. He's not going anywhere. He's gonna play his whole entire career for the Reds, which is obviously I think that's a big advantage. Like I think playing one. I mean, to me, he's got to be a top 5 Red of all time, no doubt. I know they've got a lot of good players there, so I'm not going to say he's like the best ever because I know they've got a ton of really really good players that have played there over the years. But Johnny Bench, Frank Robinson, Pete Rose, they've had a ton of really 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 good players.
Griffey, would you put Griffey in the top 5? He was on the downhill of his career when he was there.
I don't. I'd have to look at the list, but I wouldn't say he's a Mariner to me.
Yeah,
Griffey, but he had a lot of really good years there. But
he had 2 big home run years with the Reds. I could be wrong though.
I mean, he was a stud. He might be the all-around most talented player to ever play baseball. But yeah, I mean, to me, I got to give Votto the nod. I don't know. To me, I think what's big too with Votto is you either love him or hate him, and I've always been a guy that loved him. I like the way he played baseball. Just the thing with me, I always like a guy that, and it's very rare in sports nowadays, especially loyal. I mean, he's loyal.
That's a big thing. Him playing his entire career with the Cincinnati Reds, I think that's a notch in your belt. And I think that helps you for your case for Cooper.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think that's really big. I think, there's probably plenty of times where he could have requested a trade and been like, I don't want to play here anymore, but he didn't. And I'll respect him for that. I think he's just, I don't know. He's a guy when you think over the last decade, you think of like a top player in the league. It was always him. Yeah. So I'll give him the nod.
It's a great question. We'll let our fans talk about that, see if they got Joey Votto entering the Hall of Fame when his time is done. Trying to think of anything else you want to touch on before we get going.
One more thing. What do you think of? I wanted to see. I saw a guy in the last place list for most overrated players. Like not like the most overrated, but like it is
On there at the bottom.
On there at the bottom. So like the first one that he had on was Salvador Perez. I couldn't disagree anymore. I think he's a great player.
I think he's so underrated.
I was just gonna say, I think he's one of the most underrated players.
I think he's more underrated than he would be over. You know what I mean? Like
I thought he's been a top catcher in the MLB for the last better half of the decade, last 6-7 years, and I think he's overshot. You know, no one talks about him because he plays for a really bad team for over the last couple of years. But I always saw him as a top 3 catcher. I just saw him as like right behind.
I think over the past couple of years, his defense has worn off a little bit. I think he's kind of taken a dip. I think that his play has kind of decreased a little bit on the defensive end. Hitting is still there though, and he was
no, for sure, yeah. I just thought I wanted your opinion on it. I didn't know if I was being crazy. I just always saw him as a really underrated player.
I think Salvador Perez will be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, especially he's arguably had the best season a catcher's ever had this season.
He's got a ring. He's been an All-Star, I think, seven times.
Yeah, and he's Gold Glove every year. He's an All-Star. He's probably been the Gold Glove similar to those years.
We'll check this real quick before we get going. But yeah,
as you're looking that up, Buster Posey,
automatic.
I agree. That's also been an argument I've seen.
Automatic Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
3 World Series MVP.
He's caught a couple. He caught a perfect game. He's caught a couple no-hitters. I think that's big too when a catcher catches a perfect game or a no-hitter.
Like, dude, this is really good for a catcher. Career stats: 4,200 at bats, 270 career average, 195 home runs. So he'll have 200 home runs, well over 200. 644 RBIs. He's been playing for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 seasons. That kind of, wow, 10 seasons.
Time flies, man. Time flies.
Isn't that crazy? 2011, he came into the league. And then when you look at a guy like Yadier Molina, who's been playing for 20.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think Salvador Perez is slowing down. I'll give him another 4 years of solid play.
And he's in the AL, so the DH, he'll still be able to play for a little. I'm not saying that will be his case for Hall of Fame. He'll be a catcher, like that's his Hall of Fame.
I agree with you. I think for sure that he's a Hall of Fame. He could, by the time his career ends, and if, let's just say everything pans out well. Obviously, he's not going to have seasons like this every year, but if he can just stay consistent, hit like 15 to 20 home runs a year, get a couple RBIs, stay consistent behind home plate, and just maybe get 1 or 2 more All-Stars, I think he's a surefire. Maybe not first ballot or anything like that, but I think he definitely sneaks into the Hall of Fame. Another guy that might, hopefully he plays his whole entire career with the Royals.
I think he will. I don't think they're going to get rid of him.
What do you think?
I'm looking at Yadier Molina right now.
What do you think Yadier Molina? That's like the biggest debated guy right now, even over Joey Votto, which I think is ridiculous. Yadier Molina's Hall of Famer.
18 years he's been in the league. He's got 1, 2, 3.
He's got 1 more year left. He's announced that he's playing last year as his last year, so he will play 19 seasons.
10 All-Stars. Maybe even next year he could win. Hits. He's got 2,100 hits. 399 doubles, 171 home runs. So wow, Salvador Perez actually has. That's the one. Perez has more home runs in 10 years than Yadier's got in 18.
I mean, Salvador, he's got 42 home runs right now this season. That's ridiculous.
Does he really?
Yeah, you didn't know. Perez is on fire this year.
Was it 42 home runs? Are you serious?
42 as of yesterday. I'm like
43. He's got 43 home runs.
I think he hit one tonight. Then he must have hit one tonight.
He probably did. Oh my God, that's absurd.
If he gets to 50, that's an all-time season.
That's big time.
An all-time season right now. I know it's the most home runs a catcher's had in a season since like 2003.
We'll talk one last player. Adam Wainwright, Hall of Fame, yes or no? Tough. Isn't that tough?
Really, really.
Did Chris Carpenter get in?
No, he's not getting in.
I know he had some good years with the Cardinals.
I don't think he played long enough.
Yeah, I don't think he was good long enough.
Yeah,
I think he was only good for like a short stint, like 3 years.
I don't think he played more than like 12 seasons. I think he only played like maybe 10 seasons.
But Wainwright
was so
over 200 wins. He's got over 200 career wins.
Yeah, he was so good. and he's actually having a really good season this year. I saw like one of the best seasons he's had in a while. Uh, it sounds crazy because you know me, and a lot of people know me. I'm very hard. Like I usually don't let guys into the Hall of Fame. Like I'm very like I'd be like the tough voter. I'd be the one guy that didn't give Jeter the first ballot Hall of Fame. Like that's the way I am. Like you know me. Like I'm tough to vote in, but I'd give him the nod because he's been one of the better pitchers over the last decade. More.
He doesn't have 200 wins yet. He's actually at 183. But he's
So fake news from Jim.
My apologies. I fact checked myself, so we're good.
No, it's good. No, I mean I think he'll get
career ERA.
I think he'll get to 200 wins.
334 career ERA.
That's not very good.
Not very good.
I'd probably give him no then. I'd probably say no to him.
It's good. It's good. It's good. But like when you think pitcher in the MLB Hall of Fame,
I was just gonna say when you think Hall of Fame, you think Nolan Ryan type guys. I'm saying no. I'm saying no. Great player, great player, great pitcher. One of the better pitchers over the last, more so the decade before, more so like 2008 to like.
Here's where I kind of got. Listen, he's been playing since 2005. He's been playing 16 years in the league. He's been, you would say, consistent over those 16 years. A good, solid starter. Koufax was phenomenal. He only played, 6 years? And he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but that different time. I mean, he was dominant. Perfect game.
6-7 years, but he's in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? At least Wainwright's been doing it for 16.
I agree.
I'm not saying anything about Koufax. Koufax, one of the greatest pitchers ever when he was in his prime. But I'm just saying, it's an interesting point to bring up.
It's just it is. It's tough because it's a shame because I think 4 years ago we would have said he was a Hall of Famer. I just think he had
won that World Series, or after he won that World Series.
After he won the World Series, and I mean people forget that in like 2014 he was like the second best pitcher in the league next to Kershaw for all those years, for like 3 or 4 years. But then he had I know he had a season-ending injury when he was like kind of in the prime of his career. He like tore his Achilles running to get a baseball, I remember. And then over the last 2 years after that, he had kind of had some rough years. But I know this year he bounced back and had a really good year. If he can have another maybe 1 or 2 solid seasons, maybe I can see him getting in. But to me, I still got to say no because it's the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's tough to get into. They don't just let guys like that in.
Koufax only had 6 good years. He actually played for 12, but the 6 good years.
Koufax definitely played like 10 years.
But he only 61 to 66 were his 6 years where he was an all-star. So his ERA is a lot better, 2.76.
His ERA is a lot better.
But I'm just saying, when you look at,
I think when you think Hall of Fame pitchers, anything over 3 is tough. Like that's not good.
There's got to be someone in the Hall of Fame though over 3.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, Cy Young is probably his ERA is probably over 3.
Pulling it up right now.
It's tough, man. I got to say no, though. I'm a fan.
Bert Belevin, 3.31 ERA. But he also has 287 wins.
Yeah, what year was it? 1930?
1951.
Yeah, I mean.
Still, though, if these guys are in – listen, the
yeah, but how I see is guys that are making the Hall of Fame now for pitchers are Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer's. Like Adam Wainwright isn't there. He's just not there for me. And I'm a fan of him, and I think he's had a great career.
Here's the question that I come with the Hall of Fame. The Baseball Hall of Fame tells a story about the game of baseball. Can you tell the story of baseball without that specific name? Like, I know you would have been tough on Derek Jeter, and you probably would have been the unanimous or the voter who voted him no.
I would have voted no for first ballot for Derek Jeter. I can be honest. I would have voted no. I would have definitely voted him into the Hall of Fame, but I would have voted no the first time.
Could you tell the story of baseball without Barry Bonds?
No.
Therefore, he should be in. In my opinion, he should be in.
No, I agree. We disagree on a lot of things. That's one thing we won't disagree on is we think that the steroid guys should get in. I think Pete Rose should be in. I think Barry Bonds should be in.
Here's a Philly. Right? Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Hold on. Sorry, just checking stats.
And that brings up the point.
Yeah, Jim,
Can you tell the story or the game of baseball without Chase Utley? To me, absolutely not. Chase Utley's got to be in
but
there.
that's another player that 5-6 good years.
No, I mean you could tell.
After that.
You could tell without Chase Utley. I'm more saying that as bias because.
All right, Jim Bunning, 17 years. This
great film.
This is Wainwright's comp, in my opinion. 17 years, ERA of 3.22. Only 224 wins. Not only, that's crazy. But if Wainwright can say
get the 200, get the 200.
Wainwright's got to get to 200 to get in.
Which, from what you're telling me, he's at 183. You said.
Oh, Wainwright is actually, he's at 183. He needs 17 more. He's got to play next year with the out year.
He's got to play 2 more years to get there. He's not going to get it in each season. No chance. Honestly, he might need 3 years. I mean, 17.
Wow. Dennis Eckersley wins. Oh.
No, but he was a closer. Eckersley was a closer.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was a closer.
No way.
Yeah, Eckersley's closer.
Oh, why did I think he was a starter?
I know everyone thinks he's a starter, but he was a closer.
Wow, I thought he was a starter.
No, he gave up that home run, that famous Kirk Gibson Dodger home run.
Did he really?
Yeah, he's the guy that gives up the home run. He's a closer. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Shocking news. I know. I thought he was a starter too until I figured it out.
So Wainwright's got his work cut out for him.
I think it's like
first ballot, first ballot, no, but I think maybe he could get in. And listen,
can you tell the story of baseball without Adam Wainwright? Yes.
Yes.
That's it. Like, it's the conversation that you just brought up to me. Can you tell without him?
Pitchers like him come around often.
Often, yeah. It's like, to me, guys that get in nowadays are Kershaw's, Scherzer's, like
you won't be able to like
Steven Strasburg. Steven Strasburg is probably not going to be a Hall of Famer.
No. Wow. Yeah. No. I mean,
too injured.
There's a difference between
World Series MVP won't be in the Hall of Fame.
Superstar, then All-Star. Like, it's crazy. That's why baseball is literally the toughest sport, in my opinion.
Well, that's why I love baseball. That's why I love baseball.
So hard.
The Hall of Fame. Like, the NBA is a joke. Like, Chris Bosh is a Hall of Famer. He's not a Hall of Famer. Like, he was a great player. He's not a Hall of Famer. Like, Vince Carter will be a Hall of Famer. He's not a Hall of Famer. He was a great player. Like, you know what I mean? That's the basketball. Basketball is a joke. There's Yao Ming made the Hall of Fame. He was a good player.
Didn't play long enough.
He didn't play long enough. He was a good player. Like, there's plenty of guys that get in all the time. Chris Bosh was the biggest one, the most modern one to me. He was a great player. He retired when he was 31 because unfortunately he had the blood clot. He's not a Hall of Fame player.
You think Paul Pierce is a Hall of Fame player?
Yeah, I'd give Paul Pierce. He won that title. He's a Celtics legend. Obviously, I think being on the Celtics is huge, but that's a big thing. NBA is like a joke. There's plenty of guys. You could look at the list. There's plenty of guys. Grant Hill. I'm a Duke guy. I love Grant Hill. He's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's players that, in my opinion, you just can't tell a story without. When you put it that way, I think Wainwright, you can tell the story without. People like him come around often. Has he had a good career? Yes. And I think that
I think he's had a great career.
Not first ballot, but I think he can get it. We'll end off with one more player before we get going.
I like to say we gotta do one of these like a full segment of this.
This is good, and we gotta bring some people on to talk about this because it's a good segment.
We should do a segment like players that shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame that are in the Hall of Fame, and players that like aren't in yet that should be in it.
Final player in his return to St. Louis last week. I think I know you know where I'm going with this. Albert Pujols is currently with the Dodgers. In his return back to St. Louis, in his first at bat, he got a standing ovation, and then he hit a home run into the left field seats. Albert Pujols, first ballot Hall of Famer. Unanimous first ballot.
Oh, I thought you meant I thought you were going to say is he a Hall of Famer in general? First, he's
no. Like unanimous first ballot, like in.
Yes.
Unanimous.
I think it's going to be unanimous. I think he's going to be. Would that be the first one or the second one ever?
Rivera got unanimous.
Ken Griffey should have got unanimous too. I think he was one vote off.
Derek Jeter was one vote off.
Yeah, I would have voted against it.
Albert Pujols
is the first ballot. I would.
But his career with the Angels hurt him.
I think he doesn't get it. I think he doesn't get. I think he's going to be first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think he gets unanimous. I think there's going to be a couple. I think there's going to be 5 votes that say no to him.
Yeah.
I think Ken Griffey Jr.
But like,
I think,
we're talking about this now. How could you say no to Albert Pujols? You know what I mean?
I mean, if someone said no to Jeter, someone's going to say no to Pujols. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
With the same thing with Ken Griffey Jr. I think only got 1. I'm almost 99% sure that he got 1. To me, how do you not have Ken Griffey Jr. as a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Injuries, longevity. He was all phenomenal.
But
that could have been the writer's thing.
No World Series, I get it. Played for a lot of losing teams. Never really, had that run. But how do you leave? Come on.
But that's what I'm nervous with. Like Bryce Harper. Like, what if Harper never gets a ring with Philadelphia? How could you let a talent like that
Don't say that. Jim, don't say that in this podcast.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying
Harper's winning an MVP. All right, Harper's winning an MVP, for sure winning an MVP, but
for sure winning an MVP, but
he's winning a World Series.
Not with the Phillies.
No, stop, Jim. Don't say that.
That organization's so bad.
No, we're winning one soon. I think we're going to win one within the next 3 or 4 years.
Are the Dodgers going to no longer be in the MLB?
Okay, listen. We're going to get hot. We're going to be like the Mets those couple years back. We're just going to come in. We're going to get hot. We're going to get Mike Trout. He's going to come to Philly some point.
Trout signed the huge mega
It's going to happen.
We'll get Shohei. We'll get Shohei Ohtani.
We're going to do a trade, Mickey Moniak and Alec Boone for Ohtani and Trout. Who says no?
I heard something that I think they threw McCutchen in that deal too, because the Angels want that veteran outfielder.
Yeah. And they want to go a different route. They think McCutcheon's had a couple MVP years. I actually saw a newspaper article today. Who would have thought Mickey Moniak, out of all the first round picks, Wentz and Simmons, he would be the one that's still there because Simmons is probably out.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. We'll get into trades in a later episode.
We'll talk Sixers once the NBA gets closer.
We got to talk this segment more. We got to talk players that are currently playing that we think could make the Hall of Fame. And
we'll do it for all sports. Listen, for those of you listening, if you guys have some players you want to rattle off, who you think could be unanimous,
we'll debate
first ballot, who could not make the Hall of Fame, who shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, literally anything that you have, reach out to us. We'll talk about these guys. We'll bring you on to talk. And if you haven't already, follow Bryce and I on Instagram or Twitter, and you can follow us or subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, any platform that you guys listen to. Thank you again, Bryce. Great episode tonight.
Quick thing. Next episode, we're bringing on a very special guest. We're going to be talking Jim's current school, Rutgers football. We're going to talk about their season.
Rutgers is currently sitting at 2-0. They take on the Delaware Blue Hens at home this weekend. Bryce, I don't know if you checked out. That game's not even on. You can't even.
I mean, they're probably going to beat Delaware pretty good.
So, but week 4, we got Michigan at Michigan. That's going to be a game. That's going to be a game.
I hate Michigan. I don't know.
But winning in that stadium, there's no.
I would love to see them win so bad because I hate Michigan.
So would I. That'd be crazy. But
I mean, you go to Rutgers, that makes sense. So.
Here's what I'm calling. Here's what I'm predicting. Rutgers is going to win. Rutgers is going to win this weekend. They're going to go out to Michigan.
Was that the big prediction that Rutgers are going to win this weekend against Delaware?
No, that's what I'm going for. They're winning this weekend. They'll sit at 3-0. They'll go out to Michigan. They'll take on the Wolverines. They'll beat them at Ann Arbor. They'll beat them. We're 4-0. Week 5, ESPN College Game Day is coming to Rutgers to see us take on Ohio State, and we will beat Ohio State.
Jim, stop.
5-0.
Oh,
there it is.
Just put it out there. It's
Lock it in. That's a Bryce's best bet.
No, Bryce doesn't agree with that.
That's a Bryce's best bet. We will upload that on the Instagram later tonight. Listen, guys, thank you for tuning in. Bryce, you got one more thing to say, obviously.
Go Birds, baby.
Go Birds. Let's go.